I'm Scott Al Miller. It's the 29th of November, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today we're going to be talking about why you should be going out and giving yourself the opportunity to attempt solo travel. I'm just back from a solo trip to Bolivia, where I was for about a week and a half, and I regaled you with a bit of my trip in previous episodes a few days ago, and I'm going to be using that as a basis for a little bit of discussing why solo travel is so important and something we so often overlook, especially on channels like this one. Of course, if you're a backpacker, you're going to be like, Scott, everybody solo travels, but not everyone does. A lot of people are very afraid of that, and I think it's something that more people should be embracing. But we're going to be talking about all that right after the bump. We often talk about travel on this channel because in a channel where we cover a lot of relocation, travel is a natural partner with that, and I'm a big-time traveler. I love travel, especially very slow travel and exploring the world and getting to know different cultures and places and peoples and so forth. And I spent a lot of time traveling, but one of the things I've actually not done that much of is solo travel. My one time doing a big, completely solo trip where I had absolutely no support whatsoever was 14 years ago. I went to the Netherlands and Germany, primarily Germany, for 10 days, completely on my own. At that point, I was in my late 30s. Dominica couldn't come with me because we had just had Liesel, who now celebrated her quince in yesterday's episode. And she was too little to travel with me, but I needed to be in Germany for this event that I was going for. And it had been planned for a decade. And so I ended up going alone, which is not anticipated at all. And that was one of the most important trips that I ever did. Now, of course, I did some amazing trips with my wife, with my parents, with different people at different times. I did some really good traveling with friends when I was in my early 20s. I often tell the story of going to Disney World for 10 days with two of my buddies. We were all about 21, 22, and what a great adventure that was. And that really helped prepare me for travel, doing a cross-country drive with a long period of time with just friends. Like, it was very different from other travel I had done when I was younger. But in 2009, when I did this really long trip to Germany completely on my own, I think it was a big trip of discovery for me. I learned a lot of things about what I like to do. I learned a lot about my ability to travel on my own and some things about how I like to travel. For example, a really major thing for me, typically when I travel, because I travel with my wife, and she is a really serious planner, and she's very much into travel planning. So I have this benefit of basically having a travel agent with me all the time, and she takes care of all of the accounts for our hotels, for booking, for Airbnb, for flights, for buses, for trains, all those things. She knows all the options, all the prices, all the legalities, the limitations, all those kinds of things, and she puts them all together and makes it very easy for us to travel, and she often keeps a schedule. All I have to do, I'll know what city we're going to next. When we traveled in 2012, for example, she had every single thing down to, we knew what hotel we were going, we knew what train we were taking, we knew everything. And that made it really easy. All I had to do was move luggage from place to place. I didn't have to worry about all those other details. She took care of that. So in a lot of our travels, I've had those things taken care of. When I went in 2009, I didn't do any planning like that. Obviously, I booked plane tickets or they wouldn't have taken me. But beyond that, I was very much just traveling by the seat of my pants. I had a flight from, I believe, JFK down to Schiphol in Amsterdam and nothing else. I had a hotel room picked out in Germany, in Osnabrück, Germany, but I flew into Amsterdam, which is a different country. It's not hard to get between European countries, but I was in a different country with no plan. I simply got off the plane and figured out what to do. And that would have been my plan all along. I knew that that was what I was going to do. I didn't forget to do it. And my wife is like, this is so stressful. I'm stressed out thinking about you taking this trip without plans. And I said, I feel so liberated having no plans. All I have to do is show up, and if I get to the wrong place, I just stay there. If I decide I want to do something else, I do that. Now, I had the benefit of no really hard requirement of I wasn't meeting anyone. I didn't have to be anywhere on any certain date. I did have a date that I really wanted to be in a place, which I'll talk about in another episode. It was purely just a thing with museums and anniversaries, but there was this freedom to this, and I really love this flexibility of being able to just go and do whatever at every moment, and it worked out just fine. In fact, I don't think it could have been better. I put in no effort, My dogs just crashed into both of my legs at the same time. I put in no effort. I landed in Amsterdam, got to see the city for a few minutes, got to see the airport, the train station, got to the train, asked them how to get to Osnabrück, bought a ticket, zipped off to Osnabrück, got a taxi, got to my hotel, checked in, and had a great time. It was so nice having to worry about absolutely nothing and having the freedom to switch what I was doing at any moment and answer to no one. And you can really only do that when you're alone. You can sometimes take someone with you. Last year, I went to Guatemala with 2 friends, and we had a lot of flexibility, but there's still, you have to make sure that they're comfortable with where you're staying. You have to make sure that they're okay with where you're going to eat. There's all this discussion. Where are we going to go for food? What are we going to do? When I was alone, I was able to walk down the street, look in a window of a shop and say, that bakery looks good. I'm just going to grab a cake and a coffee real quick. And I don't have to worry about when I'm going to eat my next meal. I'm not going to ruin my meal because I don't have a meal, right? And then I'd be walking through the center of town and I'd see a fast food restaurant that's completely unique to the region and I've never seen before. Whoa, I'm going to check that out. And I go explore it. I don't have to worry about someone being like, but I was looking forward to this special meal or place that I had found, or we didn't have any of that, right? You're able to just make those decisions and really quickly. I did the things that I was there to do, but after that, I had a lot of spare time. I had built in a vacation since I was there in Germany, and I started just exploring. I would say, well, there's a village outside the city that looks interesting, and I would just walk there. And I have to worry about if someone was willing to walk or if it was something they were interested in. And if I got there and it wasn't anything of interest, nobody cared. And I was able to take excitement from just, one, the solitude, which is something you don't normally get when traveling, but also this ability to just enjoy the things that I enjoy, like taking a walk in the country, finding a village, sitting down at a cafe and experiencing a little bit of village life for a moment. Most people aren't that excited about that, and those are the things that I enjoy, and you will likely enjoy different things and find those in your travels as well. And when I then did that and then said, well, I'm going to go explore downtown. There's old parts of the city. I'm just going to wander the city. I started discovering museums, and I would just stop in and go to a museum. And I would spend time on my own going through a museum, reading the exhibits, really getting a lot of value out of it, which you can do, of course, when you have people with you. But it's harder. It's harder that you're going to find a museum that you both enjoy, that a place you're going to want to both spend the same amount of time, and so forth. There's just a lot of challenges with having more people. And when you're alone, you have so much flexibility. And I loved that trip. It was a really big trip of discovering things I liked about travel, but it was also a trip where it was very good for me to learn a lot about myself, in that being alone like that, I really enjoyed those things. I really liked going to the museum by myself. I really liked having that solitude for a certain amount of time, and I really liked just discovering the place that I was in, and it gave me a lot of confidence in travel, which I didn't have to use alone for a really long time. Now, of course, I've used it a lot over the years when my wife and I, or friends and I, have traveled other places. I have a lot of, well, I know I can do it by myself. With people, it's even easier, right? It may be more frustrating, but it's definitely easier. You have someone to pay attention and make sure you don't miss a time, or that you don't see a gate change that happened or whatever. You have all those extra benefits, those extra eyes on things, people to watch your luggage. It's one of the hardest things. Being alone, you got to watch all of your own luggage all the time. You have no one to double check your decisions, anything like that. So that makes it a little bit tougher. This past couple of weeks, I was in Bolivia. And so once again, I was traveling completely on my own. Now, it's been 14 years, so it's not something I do all the time. I travel a lot, but not by myself. And because I had this confidence, I had zero worries, like no problem at all. And of course, a lot of business travelers, a lot of backpackers, like people do this every day. Like there's no reason to be. But it's a point that a lot of people are very nervous about travel in general, and doing solo travel takes that up quite a significant amount. And the average person will never travel at all, let alone be someone who would travel completely on their own. And I think that there are some really big benefits to that. And it's something that I would encourage people to go out and do, whether you're young and it's your first time, and just don't let it hold you back that you don't have someone to travel with. But also, if you're older, don't be afraid to be like, this is something I need to do. I need to get a little bit of me time. I want to go to a place that no one else wants to go to. This is a priority, or I have the free time or whatever, and get out there, because it's not just about the place that you go. It's also about who you're going with. And in the case of solo travel, it's going with yourself and having that time away from things to discover yourself in a different setting. I think it's pretty good. So I went to Bolivia, And I flew down and spent, I did have a bit of time where I was meeting people and got to hang out with friends. So I wasn't alone the whole time, but the travel was completely alone. I traveled to several countries by myself, which was very cool. And again, not in any way nerve wracking. I'm used to travel, but went to Costa Rica by bus, went to Peru by plane, went to Bolivia by plane from Peru, and hopped around and went with different airlines, and just handling all of that stuff by yourself, I think does a lot as a traveler to encourage a level of comfort that you may not get when you travel with other people. If I had spent my entire life only traveling with other people, there's all these crutches, like maybe you never do the check-in at a hotel, or maybe you never carry the luggage, or maybe you never deal with the flights, or maybe you never make some of the decisions, or you never make them alone, or whatever. It's really easy to have a feeling like travel still remains a little bit scary. And when you go and do solo travel, I think it breaks down some barriers and makes you want to say, I can just go. Like anytime, anywhere. Now, I should say, for a very long time, I worked all over the eastern United States. And so I don't consider this like travel because I wasn't going anyplace exotic or different or anything like that. But I would travel between Florida and Georgia and Washington, D.C. and New York and Massachusetts and Ohio. And I would just be running all over the eastern portion of the country alone in a car, which feels a little bit different again. But I was dealing with hotels and maps and schedules and all that kind of stuff for a period of years where I would be on the road almost all the time. So in some ways, I've done solo travel far more than a normal backpacker. But as far as going to other countries and, taking off in a plane and going someplace exotic, I've done quite little, in fact. So it depends on how you look at it. But this particular trip really gave me some memories of my trip to Germany 14 years ago and reminded me just how much I do enjoy solo travel and how much I feel it's valuable and that I've gained from it. It's not just fun, which of course it is. And it's not just an opportunity to go when no one else is prepared or willing to go with you, or just places that no one else is interested in, but it does actually give you some really important time to yourself, and time to yourself in a setting where you may typically have just not had that kind of opportunity to spend time with yourself in that way. Sure, you may get a weekend at home alone, and maybe you are single and you're alone most of the time, but when you're alone in a new place, challenged with exploring and discovering culture and a region and a climate and a cuisine and all those things on your own, you may find yourself challenged with new things in new ways. And especially that it's so easy, especially when you're alone, to meet new people and interact with them very casually. It's very easy to end up in social situations that are really unique and exciting that you could have happen when you're traveling with people, but are much harder, much less likely. The concept of meeting people when you're traveling alone is completely different than what you normally get when you're traveling in a group. Now, of course, if you're traveling in a group, there can be times that it makes it easier to approach people. You feel more confident, you have people with you, you have some fallback, you don't feel isolated and exposed. So of course, for some people and in some circumstances, traveling in groups is going to make it a little bit easier to meet people. But in general, you're much more approachable when you're on your own, and you're much more likely to be waiting for an external conversation. People who travel with partners or in groups generally have each other to talk to, and outsiders are not going to talk to you too often because it would generally require interrupting a social situation. But when you're on your own, there's no social situation to interrupt. You're obviously someone that you could talk to, and it's easy to approach you. And so it's really evident, I think, when traveling alone, the gap between what it's like when I travel with my family, for example. I can go weeks at a time traveling and really never interact with anybody specifically. No one random is just going to come up to me and start a real conversation and start talking and maybe share a cab or something. But when I'm traveling on my own, as I just did, just in the little bit of getting back from the airport, I'm not doing any particular travel, just the logistics of travel, and I ended up meeting a number of people in the immigration line into Costa Rica, ended up finding someone who's heading to more or less the same bus station as me. We ended up sharing an Uber, ended up having dinner together and hanging out for a couple hours and having real conversations and talking about travel and talking about our experiences and stuff. And that's something that it's super unlikely to happen when you're traveling in a group. And likewise, as soon as my bus arrived, I got off and there was people who were traveling out to the beach, and they immediately started talking to me like, hey, can we share a cab? Where are you going? What do you know? Because there was no cabs. We had a little bit of time to talk while we were waiting for one. It turned out they were going to a place that I'm involved with, so I had all kinds of information for them. It was very funny, but we ended up connecting. And so we have these people that we connect with very easily when you travel alone. Now, when I was in in Germany and no one spoke English and I was completely on my own and it was my first time, I really didn't interact with very many people. That was different. But certainly traveling here alone, I find that I interact with people very quickly. And this is part of the hostel, the backpacker experience. People who do that immediately know, right? When you're in a hostel, you have that, you're alone, you're in a shared room, there's people to talk to, you kind of know that there's a lot of people that are open to talking to. You'll see them at breakfast, you'll see them out at shared activities, because a lot of times there's orchestrated things that you can go to, organized, planned trips, that kind of stuff. If you go to the hostel bar in the evenings, there's people there just to hang out and meet other travelers. It's a great way to meet people. Now, it's bad often or a lot of these types of things are bad for meeting locals and becoming a part of the local community. And that's hard to do anytime you're traveling through quickly. But at least it makes for a very easy set of connections to people in general who are traveling or similar to you, depending on where you're going. And so that's a really big aspect, I think, of solo travel that a lot of people miss. And of course, some people are very introverted and that sounds very stressful and they don't want to do that. They want to be in a situation where there's other people to kind of shield them so that people don't want to talk to them, obviously. But for a lot of people, I think it's a chance to get out of your shell. It's a chance to open up and practice meeting people and just expand your worldview, right? Meet people from all over the world who are out traveling, discovering the world just like you. And while you may not be using that mechanism very often to meet people who are from the place that you're in, although that can certainly happen too, it's often that you're not going to meet people who are from your hometown. You're going to meet people from around the world and share their experiences from a different context as they explore the same place that you're exploring. So there's a real value to that too, which is different than the value of being with your own group and a value of being with the people of the place where you're traveling to. So they're a tertiary group and important in their own right. The problem with the people you travel with is that generally you're bringing your context with you, and it actually makes it much harder, I think, in most cases, to integrate or experience a lot of local culture and the local experience, simply because you're bringing, like for me, I'm coming from the United States. It's like you bring a bit of the United States with you. I bring a couple of my friends. Well, we're still talking about things that happen back home. We're still talking about shared friends or shared acquaintances or work things and things that are just relevant to our lives, and not steeping ourselves in the places that we go, because we're bringing so much with us that allows us to escape back to our old lives. And when you travel alone, you really kind of are forced to give all that up. And of course, now with social media and the ease of talking on our phones, yes, you can still connect back and talk to your family and friends very easily and not completely separate in the way that you used to just 15 years ago. But you still do have this, I'm on my own, and everyone I'm talking to, they don't know my friends, they don't know my town, they don't know my work. I don't have to talk about those things. Let's talk about shared things and discuss things. And it's a very different social interaction. And I think, of course, being solo is not what makes it possible. It just encourages it. And I think a lot of people miss that if they don't do that. So I highly encourage you, whether you're young or old, whether you've traveled before or never, maybe solo travel is not the best way to recommend first-time travelers, although Camille, who's been on the show, she had never traveled anywhere, didn't know anyone who wanted to travel with her, and just packed up and went on her own, and is now a very experienced world traveler going all over the place, experiencing anything she feels like with great confidence, because one day she just packed up, left Quebec, and headed to Central America. And you can do that too, right? She could do it at 19 with no experience and no one to tell her what to do. She came from Quebec to Nicaragua and just began her journey, and has been throughout North America, South America, Europe, and is off on adventures. She just got to Asia this morning, I think. And so you can do this, right? I don't care who you are. You can grab some stuff, find a way to make it happen, and get out there. Don't feel that you have to wait for other people. Don't feel that you only can go when there's other people. There's a world of travel adventure that is both different from a what that travel is like perspective, and is different from a your personal where you want to go, what you want to do, how you want to travel perspective, when you don't have to accommodate other people. You can discover more about how you want to eat, how you want to sleep, where you want to stay, where you want to go, how you want to travel, when you're free from having to accommodate anyone else's needs or desires or habits. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. That comes directly to me and helps make all this possible. My trips, my Airbnbs, my cameras, all those things. This is quite expensive to do, but I love doing it. And thank you so much to everyone who supports me. It really means a lot that people care so much to go out of their way and show support in that way. Also, please like and subscribe. That matters. If you have a moment, let an extra video play. That helps a lot. Share on social media, like post a link on Facebook, on Reddit, on LinkedIn, whatever. Get the word out there. And of course, if you know any friends or family who might be interested in learning more about Central America, Latin American travels, travel techniques, relocation, anything like that, tell them about the show, invite them to come over and join our little community of people who live in my little GoPro box. And with that, I will see all of you tomorrow.